Hi, hockey fans, and welcome to episode 3 of Wild Wednesdays, presented by Explore Minnesota. I'm your host, manager of media relations for the Iowa Wild, Ben Gislason, and I'm joined by a very special guest today with the voice of the Wild, away being the voice of the Minnesota Wild. Up in Minnie right now, we've got Team President of the Iowa Wild, Todd Frederickson. Todd, great to have you here with me today. It's a pleasure to have you on board this for your maiden voyage on Wild Wednesdays.
Hey, thanks, Ben. I appreciate it. I really love the format here and look forward to a conversation today.
So again, if those of you who are just joining us for the first time and wondering what is this, an opportunity for fans to communicate with us and especially today, communicate with the team president of the Iowa Wild, not something that fans get to do on a very often basis. Looking forward to having Todd on for a few days now after we knew we were going to have this as the format. So Todd and I will talk a lot about what's been going on with the Wild recently, mainly off of the ice, because Todd is the one who leads all of us here and makes sure that we were able to drop the puck a few weekends ago, which was just a tremendous weekend. We'll go over last weekend a little bit, a great win, just an exhilarating win here over Rockford for the Wild. And we'll also talk about some upcoming games this weekend in Chicago. And we'll talk a little Minnesota Wild hockey too, because they were back on the ice last night. And don't forget, at the end of our show, we'll get to your questions and we'll have a question for you with our State of Hockey trivia, which will include 2 tickets to an upcoming Iowa Wild game. So all that and more as we cast off here on episode 3 of Wild Wednesdays. Well, Todd, it has been a long time coming for you to be watching hockey again, for us to be watching hockey again, for Des Moines to be watching hockey again. There was so much that went into the offseason that nobody really knew about, minus yourself and your staff. When you think about this offseason and all the work that went into it, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Well, I think the first thing that comes to mind is we're fortunate to have hockey back with fans in Des Moines, and it really is a blessing. And there's only 3 American Hockey League teams when we first dropped the puck that were having fans: Texas and Cleveland. And now it's opened up a little bit, and the Pennsylvania teams, I think, are able to start putting some fans in. I heard Grand Rapids is going to start inviting some fans to come out as well, too. So I think that's a great thing to see, that people are getting back to it. I think what you saw at Wells Fargo Arena over the first 4 games is a sign that, hey, you can have live hockey and you can have fans in your arena. You can do it safely, responsibly. And I think hopefully other teams are seeing that. Other states are seeing that. We'll continue to open up slowly, and because there's nothing better. And it's not only for the fans, but it's also for the players to be playing in front of a live crowd. There's so much more energy. And, it feels like we're getting back to, what we do best.
Definitely want to talk about that crowd, especially Saturday night's crowd this past weekend, a crowd of over 4,000 that were in the building, safely, socially distanced. I mean, we're blessed, like you said, to have a building like this in Wells Fargo Arena where we are able to still have a great crowd and keep everybody safe and healthy. We do have a few housekeeping items we do need to start with at the beginning of our show here. Allie Brown, our marketing head, made sure that I was able to get to a couple of these items moving ahead in our show, even though we don't have a home game coming up again here until March the 13th. We do have some specials to keep an eye on and look out for on our website and our social media. The first thing, we do have a single game ticket sale, which launches tomorrow morning. That's at 9 a.m. So stay tuned to our social and website to be a part of that sale. We also announced last Friday our March promotional schedule, which includes Hunter Warner socks. Yes, socks with defenseman Hunter Warner's face on them. I've seen them. They're glorious. That giveaway is at the March 13th game. And then on March 27th, we'll be doing an Iowa Wild mask giveaway, and that's presented by Iowa Corn. The first 750 fans in the building will get their hands on limited edition Iowa Wild masks. So plenty of things to keep your eyes on for our social and our website these coming weeks as we get ready for home games. But as we mentioned earlier, the Wild on the road here for about the next month. But we'll get to that. Todd, I wanted to ask you, because with the promotional schedule coming out, this is an organization that has been celebrated for its promotional success in the past with some league awards. The promotional creativity, what's that process like? Is that do you just sit at home and come up with these ideas and throw them at the wall and see what happens? Who and why and how do you guys come up with these ideas?
Well, we have a tremendous marketing department and headed by Allie Brown, and her whole staff does a great job of usually putting together a list of ideas. We're looking at what other teams are doing, what are the hot items. Obviously everybody knows the bobblehead dolls and the youth jerseys that we give away. You can tell the most popular items based on how early fans will line up for them. We're also working in partnership with our corporate partners in terms of different items that they want to see. And, we just try and, have as many items that we can give away as possible for our fans. They're big collectibles. People usually come to the arena early for it and get in their seats early. And it's great when you can have a nice crowd there for puck drop, to get the players going off early. But it's a collaborative effort. The whole team puts in time and effort into making sure the items that we have are collectibles and things that people want. And you're always chasing for what's that next a great premium item or promotional item. And that goes along the lines with our theme nights as well, too. Our appearance nights that we've had in the past, and as well as our concert nights, which have been hugely popular in the past. And we look forward to a world where we can get back to doing a lot of those fun things. For folks that have been out to our first few games, they've noticed, some of the intermission promotions that we've typically done and some of the arena activities crash is sitting at home and sitting the season out this year. So a lot has changed, but our game operations staff has done a terrific job of keeping the entertainment value there. There's a lot of stuff that we can do with the video board to be interactive with our fans. So it really starts with the marketing department and spills out from there, but they've done a terrific job at keeping fans entertained.
Well, there was no extra marketing needed on Saturday night's game. A tremendous turnout. Fans saw an exhilarating hockey game. Todd, you were obviously here to watch that game. And boy, not that there wasn't some fun to be had on opening weekend, but the crowd, the come-from-behind win, the penalty shot in overtime, and then, of course, Adam Beckman's winner to make it a 3-2 final for the Wild to get their first overtime win of the season. Did that really feel like, boy, hockey's back? I mean, to have the oohs and the ahs and the let's go Wild chant in overtime. I mean, not that the opening week it didn't feel like that, but it was almost like it hit me in the head. It's for real, and this is really happening when that game happened.
Yeah, anytime you can come to a game and you can see a penalty shot is exciting, but then to see one in overtime is incredible. And then to miss and then have Beckman score the OT winner, just a great way for fans that have seen some of those historic moments in our arena with big games and big OT wins. This was one that they'll remember for a really long time. But a lot goes into making sure we can get that type of crowd into the arena. We're fortunate that we play in a 14,000 seat arena, which allows us to socially distance. We've got most fans that are sitting 6 feet apart, and we are really strategic in terms of how we set up our individual pods. People are sitting in 2s and 4s and 6 pods, and we feel with the mask reminders and making sure that fans are wearing masks and replacing their masks after they're done eating and drinking is making everybody feel comfortable. And we've heard good feedback, and obviously our ushers are walking up and down the aisles to make sure that people are complying, and we'll continue to get better at that as we go. But so far, they understand the rules in order for us to get back to have live hockey. And boy, that combined on Saturday night was a great crowd, an exciting win. And maybe it doesn't happen that way if there's not a crowd in the building, because the players get pumped up and they get really excited by the energy in the arena. And so we look forward to doing that. We've already put our games on sale for March. We've got 4 games coming up in March, and they're already selling quick. So the recommendation, and I'm sure you're going to get to it at some point, will be to buy tickets. But I got to do my ticket plug right now because tickets I think officially go on sale tomorrow, I think at 10 a.m. So.
Yes, good. Well, that's one less thing I have to utter on this show, so I appreciate you taking that for me, Todd.
Well, you can say it again, too, at some point.
We will. Indeed, the energy was palpable in that night, and that was just the 4th penalty shot in overtime in team history. Will Bitton, unfortunately, didn't end the game there, though I think the building really, really wanted it, but we did get what we wanted, and that was a W thanks to Adam Beckman. He had a goal and an assist in that game. 7 shots on goal Beckman had. He's currently in the top 5 in rookie shots on goal in the entire AHL. He's been tremendous early. Also, rookie Damian Giroux scored his first professional goal in that win. He tied the game in the second period. Also picked up another goal for Gabriel Dumont. He's got now points in all 4 games with the Wild this season, and he's on a 3-game goal-scoring streak as well. So the veteran seemingly picking right back up where he left off last year, contributing for Iowa. And, of course, the fans might have been the real storyline of that night, though. It was just great to have them in the building. Translating over to the Minnesota Wild, they also were in action finally after a 2-week hiatus with COVID ravaging their lineup. The one positive, if you will, that could have come out of that, at least for Iowa players, has been a serious influx of players that we've seen down here in Iowa, or we're supposed to see down here in Iowa this season, with the taxi squad being implemented. That's changed things a little bit. But last night in LA, Kalen Addison, who of course dazzled in his opening 3 games down here, or 2 games. No, it was 3 games down here with the Iowa Wild. He made his professional debut last night in the National Hockey League. Also, you saw Dakota Mermis in the lineup last night. Matt Bartkowski was in the lineup last night, a name that Wild fans will be familiar with. And of course, the players that have been mainstays with the Wild up in Minnesota this year. Jerry Mayhew, Kaapo Kähkönen was in goal, Luke Johnson. Unfortunately, things did not go so well, though I don't know how anybody could have imagined it to probably have gone any different, considering all the different circumstances that was facing Minnesota last night. Young roster, haven't played in 2 weeks, players that have maybe never played a single minute with each other in the past, playing on a line all of a sudden. But good to have them back going. But Todd, I bring this up to talk to you about, because you've got to see this year in and year out, players that are down here making an impact and then jumping up and doing the same thing at the National Hockey League level. Guys like Jordan Greenway come to mind, Joel Eriksson Ek come to mind. How fun is it for you to be a part of this organization, to watch these players groom themselves here to make that jump up to St. Paul and contribute in a big way?
Well, I think it's terrific, and I think it is terrific for our fans as well, too. They've gotten to know these guys down in Iowa, and to see them jump up into the lineup, I definitely has got more eyeballs tuning into the Minnesota Wild games from Iowa for sure. We're here to develop players, right? We're here to develop players to be able to step up into the Minnesota lineup and to provide support when they have injuries, and this year when there's issues with COVID. And, like some of those players that were playing from Iowa in last night's Minnesota game hadn't played a professional hockey game since last March. So that's a tall task to ask for anybody to step into an NHL lineup and play a game, but they'll get better with each game. And you're obviously seeing Kaapo and Ned on a regular basis, and he was an absolute star for us last year, as well as Jerry Mayhew. He drew a nice penalty last night from what I saw, and just always a hard worker. And I think what you're seeing here in Iowa right now with our ability to play some 18 and 19-year-olds, and I think most fans don't understand that in the American Hockey League you have to be 20, but because of the junior leagues being suspended up until recently with the WHL announcing that they're going to be starting again, we're allowed to play some younger players that typically wouldn't be in our lineup yet, which is why you get to see the guys like Damian Hunt and Adam Beckman. And I think the future is really bright for the prospects that will be coming through the Iowa Wild system in the future. If these kids are having this type of impact underage playing in the American Hockey League, boy, oh boy, just imagine in a few years when they're back here on a regular basis, or jumping right up into the Minnesota lineup, which they'll have an opportunity to do as well. And, so I think it speaks to some really good teams that we have to look forward to in Iowa over the next few years. You
mentioned plugs about tickets. I'm going to do a shameless plug now for our Bud Country Club. I want to make sure we get all of our fans looped in on that. Don't forget, fans, that this season we've got premium tickets to the game in a premium space with our Bud Country Club. That includes tickets overseeing every minute of the action up in the loft. You also get all-you-can-eat menu of food that rotates each game night between burgers, pulled pork, pulled chicken, sausage grinders, hot dogs, and nachos. Also an all-you-can-drink menu, 12 ounces, Budweiser, Bud Light, Coca-Cola products, and water. All you can eat and drink prices start at $45. So just $45 for all of that, something that ran this broadcaster out of breath. That's how much is in that package. So head to our website, iowawild.com, to check out the Bud Country Club package. And again, all ages are welcome, but you must be 21 or older to drink.
And those sold out for us, by the way, the first 4 games. So that's a hot ticket item, and it's all socially distanced in that area up there. So
there you go. You heard it here first from President Todd Frederickson. Don't wait. Go do it now if this sounds interesting to you, or you'll miss out, even though we're not playing again here until March. Hurry up. Before we move forward to talk about the upcoming games, Todd, wanted to take a little bit of a deeper dive into the offseason and the buildup, because I know I, for one, am curious about all that it took to get this season done and to get things off the ground. I mean, it's a heavy plane to get off the tarmac, and you and your team and our team were able to do it. But how does this season compare to others in terms of, like, you've obviously had crazy times beforehand. You're a seasoned veteran in the American Hockey League from working in the league to your time here with Iowa and building this organization from the ground up. But is there any comparisons or relatables that you can think of to what you had to do and accomplish to get the season going in your past?
Certainly there isn't nothing to compare to this season. I mean, this has been trying on so many different fronts. I will say, I broke into the industry in 1996, working with the Chicago Wolves, and worked with them for 11 years. So during my tenure there, I saw us go through 9/11, which was a disruption, changed a lot of the security protocols for the arena. And there was a time period where fans were just nervous about coming back to big arena events. So we had to navigate through that. I saw the economic downturn in the late 2000s as well, too, which, had a financial impact on people's ability and corporate ability to come out to sporting events. So as trying as those were, there's nothing that prepared us for what we had to experience this past 11 months. I will say it's come in waves, because there was a time where we suspended. We thought we were going to come back and finish the season in April, in May, and there was always that little bit of hope that things would work out, and that got pushed back. And then we went through the NHL, came back with their bubble, so our October got pushed back to December, waiting on what the NHL's plans were, and then December got pushed back to February. And I would say there was a time where we didn't think we were going to be able to complete the season or have enough teams to complete the season. Fortunately, I was able to sit on the AHL's Return to Play committee this summer, so that was interesting, at least to be able to hear, people's opinions as to how we could get back and how we could get back safely, and what the American Hockey League might look like in this version, and at least to have an idea of what direction we were headed. And through that work and through the AHL's efforts, getting together to play at least 17 home games, so a 34-game season. For us, some divisions are playing less, some divisions are playing more, was really what it was about. It was about developing players, and in some markets, giving fans an opportunity to come see live hockey again. So fortunately, we're not playing unfortunately, we're not playing any of the Canadian teams this year, and our division we're just playing teams in our own division. But it was the way to get it done, safely, to minimize travel. We had to take into consideration testing protocols and how that would work. It's just an immense amount of work that went in at the league level to figure out how to get this going. And protocols are changing still on a daily basis. We're seeing it in the National Hockey League. We're seeing it in the American League. And those protocol changes will continue to hopefully allow us to continue to play and not miss a beat this season. And fortunately, so far, we've been lucky here in Iowa, and hopefully we'll keep that going into Chicago this weekend.
This upcoming question, I don't ask to belittle the COVID-19 situation, because it is a global pandemic. I mean, just the numbers of the death tolls and the people who are sick, it's been a very trying time for everyone on this planet right now. So I don't mean this to belittle the situation, but there are always positives you can find in some negatives, and there are always comical stories that come up when crazy wrenches get thrown in the gears. Anything that comes to mind for you that you just kind of you sat back and laughed and went, I can't believe this happened because we had to do this for this season?
Well, I'll just probably reflect my own personal life. I never thought I would be a third grade teacher for my son for the last 6 months. And, my son stayed home with me in the fall. He's back in school now. But boy, oh boy, I give a ton of credit to our teachers, and they do a heck of a lot better job than I can ever do. And I certainly I probably would struggle with third grade math now looking back on it. So that's one thing that was different, was just that whole change in how we go about living our lives and conducting our business. And I think the most fond memories I have are our staff getting together, whether it be to have a cocktail remotely over the summer, or just this whole new way that we're conducting business in a socially distanced way, and learning how to use the Zoom calls and the team calls and all that stuff. So I'd probably be more reflective personally. I think I've got some more funny things that have happened just with my change in lifestyle. But it's nice to be getting back into the office and getting back focusing on hockey.
You bring up your staff, and it's such a wonderful staff here, and I've got to experience that firsthand over the last month and change now since jumping on board. And did you really feel the affirming nature of your staff after they were able to accomplish what they've been able to accomplish to get the season going? How much was your pride in your staff affirmed because of how these opening 4 games have gone?
Yeah, I mean, our staff size is significantly smaller than it has been in the past, due to several different reasons. So we had a limited group and limited support to be able to kind of put this product on. But we have a veteran crew, and while you're new to the staff, you've certainly been in the business for a while. But from Eric Grunfast, who heads up our sales, to Allie Brown, to Joe O'Donnell on the broadcast side, Lisa Rothling in tickets, Brent Arnold, like these are staff members that have a ton of experience within the industry. So I had no concerns about our ability to be able to deliver the season to our fans. And we didn't have much time. We had about 2 weeks from schedule release to kind of get this up and running. But they had just put a ton of incredible work behind the scenes, not only making sure our COVID policies were in place, but also how we're going to get fans seated and what we were going to do to make sure the experience was as enjoyable for our customers as possible. The league threw a curveball at us 24 hours prior to our home game, where they asked us to remove the glass behind the players' bench, which our fans have seen. We had 24 hours to contact our ticket holders and move them to other locations. Not something we wanted to do, something that we felt was necessary, given player safety and making sure that we could continue the season. And our fans were unbelievably accepting in their having to do that, which is, it's not fun to get moved, 24 hours before your home opener that you're looking forward to coming to. And they were great about it. Our staff did a terrific job to make sure we got up and running. There's just a lot that goes behind the scenes to make this happen. And if fans don't notice it, that means we're doing our job right. And so hopefully we'll just continue the ball rolling now. We're already 25% of the way through our season this year, which is hard to believe.
Gosh, I can't believe that. Moving forward, again, good to hear from some people that are commenting on our Facebook feed here. If you've got any questions for Todd or myself, feel free to give a comment. We're getting to those towards the end of the show. Want to talk about your former employer, Chicago Wolves. Granted, things looked a lot different then than they do now, and that's not meant to date you. It just means that team has seen affiliates come and go left and right. Now they have 2 affiliates this year. For those who don't know, that the Chicago Wolves are no longer affiliated with the Vegas Knights, which means a brand new team in there, and it was going to just be Carolina. Now with Milwaukee opting out of the season, their roster has been absorbed into the Chicago Wolves, which has led for a pretty formidable team, which would make sense considering these are some of the top prospects in not just one National Hockey League team, but 2. They're 5-0 to start the year. They're looking very formidable. Seth Jarvis is leading all players in the AHL in scoring. Philip Tomasino, another rookie forward just like Jarvis, is right behind him. And they just beat Rockford last night 3-2. Granted, Rockford did outshoot them, so it's not like they ran the table on a team that the Wild have had trouble with going into overtime with Rockford last weekend. But I bring this up with you, Todd, because these rivals. The Wolves. I don't think Admirals seem to be the team that the Wild really jutted and butted heads with most last season, because the Wild were chasing Milwaukee into the later stages of the year until it was cut short because of COVID. And interestingly enough, the Wolves, with that roster departing of the Vegas players, they've taken on Milwaukee now. So it's this weird kind of double rivalry. It's like not a wolf in sheep's clothing situation, but different jerseys, same players. When you think about rivals for this Wild organization, maybe who tops that list in your eyes?
Yeah, well, I think the Chicago rivalry really came to the forefront a few years ago when we played in the playoffs. Same thing with Milwaukee, and I think Milwaukee and us were on a path to potentially see each other in the second round of the playoffs this year, and I know our fans were really looking forward to that. So I think playoff hockey does help. It helps create those rivalries, regardless of who the team is affiliated with. There is always a love-hate between Iowa and Chicago anyways, so I think they've always been a natural rival, but the one that's probably the biggest is Rockford, and we saw that this weekend, I think, as part of our crowd. Obviously, with them being affiliated with the Chicago Blackhawks, there are Blackhawk fans in this market, so you tend to have those fans come out as well, too. And so I think that has always been one of those more secret rivals. We see probably the biggest spike in attendance when Rockford comes to town more than any team. But you can tell that Chicago is probably right on the heels there. Same thing with Milwaukee. So it's great. I mean, playing within the division, like this is going to just continue to further stoke the flames. You saw it a little bit with Texas after 3 games. That there's some heated battles there that happen. I think we have to play them 9 more times still this year. So that's going to be you talk about some uncomfortable games, between people that have seen each other that much. So I think this divisional setup is interesting, and you're already seeing it at the National Hockey League, them potentially taking a look at more multiple games against the same opponent, and you'll continue to see that down here as well too. So,
my wife is a Blackhawks fan. Don't tell anyone. Don't hold it against her. She's got a Jonathan Toews jersey hanging in our closet at home. And growing up as a Minnesota boy, that was a little bit of a sticking point early in our relationship, but I got over it. But yes, indeed, there are Blackhawks fans in Des Moines. You're exactly right on that.
I always ask him. I said it was tough being a Blackhawk fan in the mid '90s, and most of them say, "Well, no, I've been a Blackhawk fan since they started winning the Stanley Cup." So
surprise.
Yeah.
They weren't at the Chicago Stadium when fans were wearing paper bags over their heads. Yeah, no doubt about it. Yeah. As we get towards the end of our show, time for our Explore Minnesota State of Hockey trivia. Last week it was about the Spam Museum in Austin, Minnesota. This week we're headed way up north to Bemidji, where a folklore character, Paul Bunyan, is rumored to hail from Minnesota, and there are 2 statues that stand in Bemidji, Minnesota, which pay homage to Bunyan and his famed blue ox. For 2 tickets to an upcoming Iowa Wild home game, what is the name of the blue ox? Again, what is Paul Bunyan's blue ox named? If you comment that on our Facebook, the first correct answer will get an opportunity to have 2 tickets to an Iowa Wild home game coming up here in the month of March. So that is your State of Hockey trivia question. Now time to get to some questions from the fans as I scroll back up on my Facebook. Let's see here. We can start with Kelly, who wants to know that do we think by the time that April rolls around that at least the top half of 103 will be available for seating?
Yeah, we're working on that process right now. It's going to come down to, do we have the ability to add a barrier of glass across the sections 103 to 105? And so we're in the process of looking into that right now, seeing if we can get it done in time. The arena, Wells Fargo Arena, is very busy over the next 4 weeks with wrestling and then state girls and boys basketball coming to town. So we're hoping that by the end of March, at least, or early April, we'll have some type of opportunity to put some socially distanced seats back in there. If we do put a barrier in, the league is mandated that it has to be 25 feet from where the player's bench is, and the barrier has to be 8 feet of glass or plexi to provide not only protection from the puck, but also with an open air bench to the players to provide some glass for safety precautions due to COVID-19. We're working on it. We're working on it. We're working on it.
And I think, unfortunately, that just has to be the answer with so many of these questions, right? Is because this is and I hate to use the word unprecedented because it gets used ad nauseum, but it's the best word to use to describe the situation.
Yeah.
Is there's no way to look back and say, well, when this happened last time, here's what we did. I mean, I think we'd be able to answer questions with a lot more clarity if that was the case, and it's just not the case right now.
Yeah.
But moving ahead, do have a question from Tom, and may need a little help from you on this, Todd, but I wanted to read it, maybe get some help from the fans. Any chance of having the Boston College 4 sign after they win the Frozen Four? Jack McBain, ? Does that mean anything to you? Because maybe I just haven't done my homework enough, and maybe is it some guys that we have in the pipeline?
Yeah, I think we've got a lot of several prospects, Matt Boldy and Jack McBain and a bunch of other prospects that are in Boston College right now, right? And so, we'll see. I mean, hopefully they could be here sooner than later. It all depends a little bit on the player and when they want to turn pro. We've seen college hockey players turn pro after 1 year of college, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. So some of it's just based on where they are in terms of their development. And then what does our availability of positions look like as well too. So hopefully we'll have more information on who's looking to come here once the collegiate season ends. But we could see some guys starting this spring, I would imagine.
Especially at this rate, I'm going to try to throw my name into the hat and get my pro debut here if we get any more strung out on the blue line.
I know. We might have to do an open practice to see if we can find somebody locally to jump on the blue line for us.
Invincible style. We do have the correct answer to the State of Hockey trivia. Hobart answered it correctly. The name of the Blue Ox is Babe. So congratulations to Hobart for answering our Explore Minnesota State of Hockey trivia correctly. Shoot us a Facebook message with an email that we can connect with you at Hobart, and we'll make sure that you get those tickets. I believe it's going to be for the March 13th game coming up here next month. So congratulations to Hobart, and thanks to Explore Minnesota for sponsoring our show and for sponsoring that game. Let's see here. Any more questions? One question again from Kelly. She wants to know about any kind of skate with the players or signing, and I'd imagine the answer to that, Todd's probably the same to the question about 103. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. At this point, the American Hockey League's protocols state that there is no autograph signing sessions or sessions where players and fans would mix. And that really is just to protect the integrity of our playing, the forwards and defensemen and our hockey ops staff, just to make sure that we don't have a situation where we're going to lose a few players to COVID that would shut down the season, not only for, when we go on the road, but also for home games as well, too. So I don't see that lifting this year at all. And hopefully we're back to normal to start next year. But certainly if anything changes, we'll be notifying our fans immediately.
Aaron wants to know, what are the rules for people who cannot wear a face mask when they come to a Wild game?
The only policy that the arena has established is with a medical note. They can come in with a visor or with a shield on, but they need to provide a medical note. The recommendation would be if you can't abide by those rules, then we have AHL TV, watch the games at home, or certainly come back next season when hopefully some of these policies have changed in the future. But as it relates to a mask policy, that's not going to change for the remainder of this season, regardless. Regardless of anything that I've seen, transpire over the last few months.
Lastly, Todd, a question for me. Did you have a chance at all to tune into K-Fan last night to listen to Joe call his first game of the season, not his first game of his career, with Minnesota last night?
I did, and I tuned in for just a little bit while I was putting the kids to bed. And it's always great to hear him call NHL games. It's been a huge dream of his. Obviously, he's done a bunch over the last few years, but we mentioned that we develop players to go up to the Minnesota Wild organization, and we firmly believe that same thing on the business staff as well too. And so Joe's the exact example of a call up on the business side, and he's ready to step in when Minnesota needs his help. They turn to us, right, and give him the opportunity to call National Hockey League games. So we just couldn't be happier for Joe. He's going to be doing a whole bunch of NHL games this year. which is great. But then it also opens up opportunities for you, Ben, to step in, and you'll be calling some of our games. And I would like to say I think you've done a terrific job in the short time that you've been on board. Obviously, you've got experience in hockey already, but what a great opportunity for you to do. Broadcast some games as well too, and kind of get comfortable in your role. We haven't been very fair to you, kind of throwing you on board and giving you 2 weeks without much direction. But that's how you learn, and how you learn quick. And you've got support from all of us to do a great job, and we really appreciate your efforts so far.
No, I appreciate that, Todd, and I'm excited about it. We'll be on the call this weekend on 1460 AM and 106.3 FM KXNO radio. It's also going to be streamed on iHeartMedia. That'll be Saturday night at 7 p.m. and then 3 p.m., both puck drops. That's a Sunday puck drop for the 3 p.m. game. Thrilled about it. Can't wait to get my first AHL road game under my belt after getting a chance to do a handful the last 2 years with you guys here. And to comment on your maybe unfair statement to me, I think I told Joe this, and I think I told you this. I would prefer that way than the slow, meek, and methodical work in. I mean, like you said, you're forced to learn when you have to do it on a short turnaround like that. And
Yep.
Grateful that we got through it, and that we had a pretty good amount of success in the opening few weeks here for me. But so again, we're looking forward to hearing Joe continually on KFan. It sure sounded like he belonged up there last night. And I don't know if you saw his tweet, but right before the game, he put out the image of where he's calling the game at. He's got a big TV here, little iPad down here, another TV over here, his mixer in front of him. I mean, as someone who calls hockey games, I just shudder to think about having to do that. And I give him credit. If I wouldn't have known that was the case before the game, I would have never guessed that they weren't there. But that has to be, and I haven't had a chance to talk to him about it yet. I'm so curious to hear from him the nuances of what that had to have been like compared to what you're obviously used to doing it when you're in the building.
Well, he's a veteran in this industry. And so when Minnesota was, talking to him and myself about, having to do this opportunity, I was like, Joe will figure it out. And he's probably practicing at home on the TV, watching a game on TV. And I had no doubt he'd do a terrific job at it. And, I think the fans really enjoy hearing his call. I know I do. And it's just an adjustment. And that's the world we live in right now. You just kind of got to jump into it. And like you said, you got thrown into it too as well. And sometimes that's the best way to learn. Kalen Addison got thrown into a National Hockey League game last night that he probably was not expecting to play. But sometimes that's the best way to learn and the best way to grow.
Well, Todd, anything as we bring this episode 3 of Wild Wednesdays to a close that we didn't get to?
No, I think we covered it. I think tickets are on sale for March to the general public starting tomorrow. And we'll be selling tickets a month at a time. So March will go on sale, and then later we'll put April and May on sale. And we're doing that partly just to see if any protocols are changing with the American Hockey League, as opposed to putting all the games in. The last thing we want to do is be moving fans around if something changes. So, keep in tune to our social media and, for all the latest updates. And we can't wait to get back to the arena. I can't believe we have to wait a month, to be honest with you. I was just getting back into the groove and was really enjoying it, but it'll be here before you know it.
Well, Todd, this has been a pleasure. Great to have you with us here today. Hopefully we won't have to do it too much. We can get Joe back on here sooner than later, but it's nice to know we have a good reliever in the bullpen to come in case Joe is absent. So thanks for this, and I know the fans appreciated it too.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on, Ben. Thank you.
Thanks to all the fans, for everybody that jumped on to tune in here today for another episode of Wild Wednesdays presented by Explore Minnesota. Again, Wild are on the road this weekend in Chicago. It's a Saturday night puck drop at 7 p.m. That's game 1. Game 2 is Sunday at 3 p.m. Both games will be carried on 1460 AM and 106.3 FM KXNO radio. I'll be on the call for both games this weekend. Greatly looking forward to it. Thanks again for joining us. For our team president, Todd Frederickson, I'm Ben Gislason, and thanks again.